Good evening, team. Good evening, campers, wherever you are. I hope you're doing well. If you were expecting us about an hour ago, I really apologise. There was sort of no power on my end. So it's joys of living in the Philippines sometimes. But we will rerun that one very, very shortly. I shall email us out to sort that out. So yeah, I hope everyone's doing well. We've got Hale in the house. Hale, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great.
Excellent. Rob, how are you doing, sir?
I'm great too.
Excellent. I'm great. So that's
three great.
We're 3 for 3.
Yeah, things are looking good. Can't be bad. Right.
You're real blurry there, Hale.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the camera. I'll just turn it off and let the world see.
There you go. There you go. You're back.
All right.
You're clear now.
Hello, world.
All right. Well, let's get this thing started.
Did he freeze?
Maybe he.
I'm not seeing him move, and I'm seeing you on the screen, or your gorilla face.
My gorilla face.
Covering today. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen.
You, just so you know, you disappeared for a while.
All right. All right, guys. Right, today we're going to be looking at sort of inspection and the importance of getting your products inspected in China. And this really comes about if you're ordering sort of larger quantities as opposed to the first time out. If you're ordering sort of a few hundred products, I guess is less important. But once you start to ordering sort of multiple $1,000s worth of goods, then it is absolutely paramount to get your products inspected. So I've got a quick PowerPoint presentation I'm going to run through. If you've got any questions, please add them in the chat. And we can address those as we go along, or certainly have sort of Q&A at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And let me know when you see that.
Yep.
All righty. So product inspection brought to you by the Amazon Gorillas. Wouldn't necessarily say product 101, but going to be pretty close. So the point is why get your inspection in China? The thing is, if you let your Chinese suppliers ship the goods to you and you discover that the goods are no good when you get them or when they get to Amazon, it is far too late to do anything about it. You know, there's very little opportunity for you to go back to the supplier and say, hey guys, all of these goods are no good, they're broken, or whatever the case may be. It's too late. Yeah, the best you're going to get from them is really apologize, Mr. Adams. We will fix it on the next order. Meaning, what am I going to do with these ones? Because they're all broken. That they're not particularly helpful or interested in that particular sort of aspect. However, we're lucky because there is a solution, and that solution is to get your products inspected before they leave the factory. Okay, it's important to do that. So when there's a number of different times throughout the actual production process that makes sense, and there's a logical process to actually get those products inspected. Now, there's two main criteria for this. Is during production. Now, it depends on how complex your product is and how critical some of that process is during for actually producing a product. So it's during production inspection or the most common time is after everything's finished. Now that is commonly termed as a final random inspection. Okay. Now, once the product's been finished, that'll be 100% finished, but about 80% packed, right? The inspection company will go in and they will take out a random sample and they will check everything that you asked them to, plus their standard list of sort of standard inspection criteria. Okay, but they will be checking things like workmanship, making sure that the labels are correct, making sure that the packing material is good. They can check the quantity. Okay, they could check everything that you stipulate plus some of the standard sort of items. Now, if they send you a report, and the report will be very detailed, that'll have a lot of photographs on there. That will have comments with respect to, we found this issue. I'm not sure whether that's critical or not for you, but this is the issue that we've found. And here's a photograph of it. And this is the issue here, but everything else is okay. It's down to you, not the inspection company, to actually say yes or no. Now, if there's a pass, then there's a pretty good chance that you can actually send that in or actually authorize the supplier to release those goods and send them in. Okay, so that's when to inspect. Now, where do you find inspection? A lot of people actually ask this question. I just happen to work for an inspection company, but they're on the top end of the scale. A popular place to find inspection is Alibaba. Simple as that. And they've got an inspection service. Now, I've got a link for that down the bottom. It's inspection.alibaba.com. Not the other way around. So it's inspection.alibaba.com. And you'll come up with this user interface page. All right. So we then click the orange link down the bottom here, sort of find inspectors, and that will take us to the next page. Okay, hold on. So let me explain what the Alibaba does. It's basically, they list third-party professional inspection companies as well as inspectors that are acting as consultants, I guess. But they would have to be a professional consultant in order to get onto that list. Now, it's important to understand that where your company's being manufactured. So it's important to actually make that sort of recommendation to them and say, you know what, I'm getting products made in Shanghai. Make sure you find an inspector around that particular area. So once you get onto that initial page, press that button to find inspectors. You'll come up with this page, and this is where you actually put in the criteria what you're looking for. So the location of the inspector is province. So you'll click on the drop-down menu and you'll find a number of different provinces within China. Now, you should have this information from your supplier anyway. Guangdong, for example, would be down south. That would cover Shenzhen, places like that. So that's when you look at the city. Okay, and you can get all this information from the supplier because they'll give you the address. It's no problems. The industry that you're in. Okay, so if you're in sort of soft toys, stipulate that the soft toys. If you're in electronics, or if you're in consumer electronics or outdoor building construction work, that is listed down here. So again, just click the industry that you're in or the niche that you're in. Inspection language. We obviously want most of ours in English. Inspector type, we can have a look at that in a minute, but it's basically an individual or a company. Okay. the type of inspection, and this is what I was talking about earlier with respect to when is the logical time in order to get your products inspected. And you can actually check each one of these or the individual one that you're looking for. So it's the final random inspection, which I was describing earlier, which is when the products get inspected before they leave the factory. So that's the final random inspection. During production inspection is if you're getting some electronics made and you want them tested during production, that's the one you're looking for there.
What's your name? I'm just listening.
So you then go on to the next screen. So once you've done that, but I just want to show you what it looks like as you got those drop-down menus. Before I do that, I just want to let you know there's this is something you asked for, Hale, earlier. I think a couple of weeks ago. Industrial clusters. Now this is a little bit small, but you'll have access to these slides. There's no problems. And these industrial clusters will show you where the common items are being produced within China. So I mentioned, I think, sort of lighters are made, 90% of lighters in the world are made in one city. Wenzhou, lighters, low voltage electronic appliances. If you're looking for shoes, you're looking in this particular province here. Most of the consumer electronics are in Guangdong. Motorbikes, you're looking for this particular province in the middle. So there's a lot to go through here, but you've got this information available to you. Now, it's important to understand this because if you're getting some consumer electronics made up and your supplier says, yeah, no problems, we're up in Shandong, you think, hold on a minute, Shandong is that's really for heavy industrial or textile machinery or big axles and stuff like this. I've got the wrong supplier here because most consumer electronics are made down south in Guangdong. So that's another thing to look at when you're actually choosing a supplier. Are they in the right area? Now, that is quite a big point, because if they're in the wrong area, that means they can produce the products. It just means that they'll have to subcontract out all of the supply chain, and all of those components will have to be shipped to where they are located. Now, consumer electronics are all based around Guangdong area, and therefore switches, diodes, and PCBs and everything that go on it are all manufactured locally. So they can get them within the hour. As opposed to 2 days time or 3 days time, if they're in sort of south and they've got to ship them all the way up north. So that's another point to remember when you're choosing a particular supplier. Look where they are located, and are they located in the main industrial cluster for that particular product? Okay. Right. So we talked about this earlier. So yeah, go ahead.
Before we get too much farther down I would suggest you add one more slide to this set up very early on, because I really hadn't thought much about it until you did it in an earlier webinar. We're talking product inspection. There is a whole nother level of inspection where you get the company inspected. Have they been around? If they got a really bad rep? Does their factory actually have plastics that they're making? Because you're having a plastic, and I know that that's one of the things that your company does, but I never really thought about inspecting the company and getting verification that they are who they say they are. Like the one you mentioned that was supposedly around the corner from your office, and there was an empty warehouse, or there was no third floor or something like that. Anyway, a lot for beginners, you would not really think about that the company may need you don't have a better business bureau to go just check them out. Make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. And that's when you're doing your due diligence on your particular supplier. That's when you need sort of that, we call it a factory audit or a supplier audit.
Yeah.
when they
But
go in and just check, make sure everything's okay, make sure they're not using child labor, make sure they've got the right machinery, et cetera, et cetera.
see, that's the kind of inspection. But again, the beginner would not even think that they ought to do that.
Yep.
So this set is product, but make people aware there is another area where if you're really planning to sell a whole lot of something, you really want to be working with a reputable company. And I know you were talking about the $300 level where they actually verified the top people in the company, then their vitas, their history, their employment history, and whether they were criminals and all the other good stuff that you really don't want to be working with a bad company. And we wouldn't know that from way over here.
Well, no,
Hey,
that's
by
very
the way,
true.
Paul,
Yeah.
when we're done, I've got some stuff. I've got some sample inspection reports, and I've got an inspection company that I feel is a pretty good, one they can go directly to. So when we get done, I'll be able to show you 3 or 4 or 5 sample reports, and so we can show people what those look like.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, good move. I like that. Like I say, I've got a ton of this stuff because I work for an inspection company, but the caveat is that is the top end, and it's yeah. But yeah, I'd like that, Rob. That'd be great.
Well, and it's $103 inspection, so pretty much anything over, I would say, $1,500 order probably needs to have this happen. And maybe at 1,000, maybe worth 10% to figure out whether or not you're getting the right goods.
Yeah, for just over $100. Yeah, absolutely.
Especially if you're, I mean, because lots of our people are international, and so especially if you're not in town, if you're not in America, and you're going to ship directly to Amazon, like I think no matter what, it's pretty important to do that. So.
Yes, correct. Good. All right, we'll have a look at that in a second. Look for
I'll
that.
be quiet now.
No worries, no worries. Just jump in as and when. That's what it's all about. So, anyway, coming back to the form, as you can see, I've selected Guangdong, and I've started to fill out this particular set of drop-down menus and the criteria. So Guangdong, then you got Guangzhou. It just automatically gives you the corresponding cities once you select the province. Then the industry that you're in, as you can see, it's going to give you a ton of different options there. Let's then have a look. So this is the final criteria that I've set down. So Guangdong, Guangzhou, industry is home, and that can cover an awful lot. English, and I want the inspection type as a company as opposed to an individual. All right, so that's basically what it will look like there. And I've clicked, don't forget to click one of these small little buttons here, and I've clicked final random inspection. Now, again, just to reiterate, this is exactly what Rob's going to show you in a minute on his report. The inspector will go in and they will check your product as a finished article, but while it's still in the factory. That's the key thing, while it's still in the factory, because while it's still in the factory, you've got some comeback. You can go back to your supplier and say, you know what? Inspection company have picked up all of these issues. I need them resolved before they send out, and certainly before I pay my balance. Okay, which I'll go through in a minute. So once you click, yeah, okay, that's what I'm after. That's going to give you a huge list of potential suppliers. Now, what I've done here is I've just clicked on inspection price so I can sort it from highest to lowest. And as you can see here, this is the highest on that certain criteria that I set down at $399 with this particular company here. Moving down, TUV, by the way, TUV and SGS, these two particular companies here. So we've got TUV with a little triangle, SGS in the gray, SGS. They are two very, very big, huge companies in the industry, and they are also on the list of approved inspection companies if you use trade assurance. All right, just to let you know. So there is a third one, but these two here are, you have to use one of those companies that trade assurance say you have to use, TUV being one of them, SGS being another. I can't remember what the third one is. But anyway, you can see the prices go from 399 down to 310, 309, 290, 288. And you can see on the right-hand side here where they are, how many transactions they've completed. You see 5, 13, 0 here for AI, 1 here for Union, another 1 for SGS. So you can see that. So then I just flip that on its head, gone from lowest to highest. Let's have a look, see what they got there. And you can see the difference. Frontline is 103. They've got 2,505 transactions versus the most expensive got 5. All right, so you can see what's going on here, can't you? Yeah, 103, 103, 118, 148, 168. So basically, this list will correspond with, let me go back up, to this criteria you've set down here. So I only want inspectors that are in this particular area that cover Guangzhou in a home niche that can give me a report in English, and they're a company, not an individual. Okay, and that is the corresponding list. So if I change that criteria up and say, okay, I include individuals, then I'll get an awful lot more potential here. Okay. So you can see there's a ton of opportunity here for you to go and find the right inspector or an inspection company. Okay. Now, this is, I just pulled off some typical examples of what they go through. They're going to have a checklist. And they're going to add comments along the way, and they're going to show photographs along with comments against those photographs. General information here, but it looks like the guy's testing a net of some sort. Measurements, they're going to show you measurements, physical measurements. Okay, this product is a bit of an industrial product by the looks of things, but they're actually showing the actual outside diameter with some measuring equipment. Okay, so this is the type of report that you'll get through. And I know Rob's got a really nice report we can have a look at in a minute. And some other great resources that I'd just like to share with you, just for information only. This is just information only. Go ahead, all of this information is all free, it's all out there, but very, very good resources. QualityInspection.org. Okay, that's a blog that runs, and the guy there will update probably on a weekly basis, and he has some very, very good information on there with respect to sourcing products in China, inspection companies in China, inspecting processes, individual processes. We've got SAOS.biz. Again, that's a bit of information on there. That's not a blog site per se, that's just a website. We've got China Importal. Now the guys at China Importal, they specialize in finding suppliers. Okay, so if you're really, really stuck and you can't find a supplier for cowboy boots, for example, go to the guys at China Importal. They will be able to help. You know, very, very helpful guys. And Global Sources, that's an alternative to Alibaba. So those resources are very good to have. Take a little bit of time going through them. You will learn stuff. Now on QualityInspection.org, you can sign up for some free information. China Importal, they've got some free information. They've also got some paid portal stuff with respect to learning how to do whatever in China, learning how to source jewelry or whatever. But that is a paid service. But again, great information on there. So anybody got any questions regarding inspection and why you should get inspected? Now, before I do that, I just got two particular stories. Now, one is non-Amazon related, and this is a general company in the UK that I've dealt with through the inspection company I deal with. And they came back to me and they sent an email in and said, help. I just don't know what to do. And this happens on a regular basis. This is just not a one-off. So, okay, what seems to be the problem? So I jumped on a phone call with them, and they said, "Oh, well, we've been dealing with this particular supplier in China for a long time, actually, several years. We've never really had a problem, and it's all been going very, very well. And we used to have regular inspections because that's just the way we rolled. But just recently, everything was going well, so we stopped the inspections because we thought we'd save a few $100s." This particular shipment came in as a 40-foot container, and everything's scrap. All of the products were wrong. They couldn't use them. They couldn't use a single one out of a 40-foot container. The value of that 40-foot container was around $50,000. Okay, so they said, "What can we do?" Well, we tried to negotiate, and we stepped in, and we actually visited the supplier, and the supplier actually sort of came back to us and said, "Well, it's we'll rectify it on the next order, okay? But as a compensation, we can give you $500." All right, bearing in mind that the value was $50,000, their compensation offer was $500, and we won't mess up again, sir. Sorry. Now, obviously, the customer in the UK was less than happy with that, and they moved on to an alternative supplier and put that down as a bad experience. The bad experience was they tried to cut a corner and save $200. Very, very important note. Okay, second one, and I think I mentioned this before, a very unfortunate situation, Amazon seller, brand new Amazon seller, an Amazon seller that had about 10,000 in his pocket to start his business. Very nice, as you may think. So the guy, who is a husband and wife team, they decided to sort of go into this particular niche, found a product, loved the product. They decided they wanted to make their own personalized bag and put a logo on the actual product itself. So they had all of those changes done. They tooled up various different things for the bag and stuff like this. Got the first order over $5,000 worth. That went into sort of Amazon. They started selling well. Everything was looking good. Fast forward to today, they've gone bust. They've gone under. They've gone finished. Current situation with Amazon, they still have several thousand units in stock. Unusable. Totally unusable. What happened is people were loving the product. Then they come back and say, 1-star review. This product crap, actually. I love the product, but it broke within 5 minutes of using it. And the reviews kept on coming in like that. Great product. I love it. Shame it broke after 2 days. And what happened there is they're trying, and it's still ongoing, they're trying to work with the supplier. And again, the supplier said, yeah, well, we know we got a problem because, we've had some feedback from the local market as well, but we're working on it. So on your next order, we'll get it right. Well, unfortunately for this couple, that's too late because I'm not sure what the situation is now with Amazon, but they've got a real danger of being closed down by Amazon or suspended because their account's so bad because all of these returns or bad reviews coming through. And they did have products inspected, but they didn't do the due diligence with respect to the product itself. They knew that it was a little bit finicky, a little bit difficult to use. But there's too many moving parts. Too many moving parts on your first product straight out the gate. Ordering $5,000 worth, not a good combination. So what we teach is keep it nice and simple, keep it nice and small, build the time, one step at a time. For sure, that is the way forward. So that's my two not necessarily horror stories, but real life stories that you need to be aware of. This stuff happens, okay? Get your products inspected. Do your due diligence on your design. Keep it nice and simple, okay? So that's basically all I've got.
There's a book called Poorly Made in China. And one of their examples,
I read that,
which is just worth tucking away. The guy was selling inexpensive shampoos, and he had it on the shelves in Walmart. And lemon and lavender and whatever, and all of a sudden one order, they were getting returns. And when they talked to the factory, the lady who owned the factory, all smells same to me, cheaper to do it one odor, one. So suddenly the lavender and the lemon all smell exactly the same, because they try and cut corners after they've got you. Things have worked out for a while, and so you have to keep on top of it, was the point of this chapter or this area, in order to make sure that they haven't, I can make 10 cents more per unit if I don't put the different smells in these. And so they don't, and figure it won't make any difference to us. And of course, it makes tremendous difference to us. So you have to keep that inspection going all the time.
If you've got ongoing orders, don't drop your inspection. Keep it on.
Well, I think one of those things that we have to pay attention to is that you should have your own list of things that you specifically want them to inspect. So you need to make sure, and that's where something like Hale just talked about is that, you have 3 different scents. Well, I mean, they may look at the packages, they may look at some things like that, but they may not pick up the fact that you have to have, that you have to have a
the one with lemon on the logo has to smell like lemon.
Right.
Yeah.
And then and that may be your other problem is that they may not know what the scents are supposed to smell like. But anyway, so maybe I'd not do stuff with scents in it.
Yeah, very true, very true. So the more complex it gets, the more hoops you got to jump through, the more difficult it is to control. No messing around.
I also like something that you said in a previous webinar. It's not really an inspection, but again, I'd never thought of it. You're dealing with this person in the company, and you get to have somewhat of a relationship with this seller, and you ask them to take their cell phone, you're on Skype or whatever, and walk through the factory and show you what it looks like. And when they walk through and they're showing you metal work and you're having plastic done, you have the ability to say, whoa, what's going on here? But I thought it was interesting that even during it's an inexpensive, it's a free way to get a check made while things are in process. Can you take me down to the line where they're building my stuff and just show me 1 or 2? Let me see what's going on. I'm curious.
I think that's super smart to do. And then I would also make sure that they took, you're not going to get the same as someone outside of it, but you can avoid a lot of things that may be done by mistake. If someone's trying to be deceitful, and we've done a video on how to vet suppliers, so that'll hopefully help you there. But the next thing is that when they're down on the floor, they can. We have cameras that have super resolution in there, so you can see stitching. I just had a product we launched 2 weeks ago, and the stitching was horrible, and how they had done it, and just it was sloppily done. I was only able to have some of them redone, but the problem is that I was on a time frame, so I had to get them shipped. So on the first order, I'm not going to get returns. It just the quality that I would want isn't what it should be. By the way, I will tell you some good news is that we launched that product 2 weeks ago, and I am on the front page of the main keyword, and we sold 70. I think we're up to almost 100 units now in the first, it's about 10 days. And our pay-per-click is doing very well. The truth is if I'm at that point where if I had enough of them in stock, I would have pay-per-click on as much money as I could throw at it. It's that good. And we have 3 reviews. No promotions were done for giveaways or anything like that. And we are selling a product that is about $20 more than what every other product's being sold for. So it comes back to that inspection. We were able to catch a couple of them. I then also, as a secondary thing, had them delivered to some place in the US to have somebody go through each package as well. And so actually caught some more of them that weren't stitched right. But what we did was we actually had somebody there stitch them. Somebody there, we had somebody's mom go in and stitch them for us. So, but that was something else we caught, you know, coming in the other direction. But anyway, that goes to show you that I guess the point is that the inspection mattered there. And then well as, you know, you can still launch products and still make money. Now that comes back to that super most important thing, which is don't get yourself into categories that are that super competitive. I mean, you know, so if you do at 100, you know, being $20 more than every other product in the category, and that had to do with how we presented it and how I created the accessories that went with it. But you know, here again, we're selling a product that's $20 more than everything else in the category, and so you know, we made a couple $1,000s in the last week, and we just got started. So you know, and that's that shows you that opportunity is out there. It's just a matter of moving forward in categories that don't have 500 people, and I keep preaching and preaching. Get yourself in categories that have less than 150 for sure competitors. This one had less than 100. They're a lot easier to find than what you think, because there are a lot of categories where they're not selling a lot, but you just got to then figure out, how do I get in that category and do that? So inspections, I think probably one of the most money saving things you can do. I mean, it's $100, guys. And you know, if you're doing a test order, well, maybe not. Hopefully your sample's done. And then we can do what we need. Hale, we need to call that the Hale inspection. That's what we'll call it. Hale's cheap, no cost inspection. Get your agent out with a Skype, and you know, hey, you know, I mean, you know what? And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, no matter when you're doing business. Hey, listen, we're just doing business together. Hey, take me for a tour of your factory. Great. Pop on your Skype right now and camera and just go introduce me to people. You won't have a problem like where Paul's company that he was doing is on the 12th floor, and there's only 11 floors in the building. So, you know, hey, show it. I mean, right now, get up and get out of your seat and go down and show me the front desk where your lady's answering the phone at, and go show me the factory floor. So, you know, you could call that the pre-inspection before you even do business with somebody. Hey, listen, you know, take me for a live call. It's kind of like, I guess you've probably seen some of those things on TV that catfish, where the girls, you know, on these online dating sites tell you that there's somebody else, and then it turns out to be that you're dating a lady in prison instead of this girl. So, or a guy in prison who's actually not a girl. Same thing here. We have the ability now that we can do live phone calls on our cell phone with a video camera. I mean, we can actually do that. So there's no excuse for you to get catfished by a Chinese company that says that they have 12 floors. You know, they're on the 12th floor of this factory when there are only 11 floors in that building. So that you can avoid that by, you know, we call it the cheapo inspection. Now, again, I think depending on your product, I mean, you know, if you're only buying $1,000 worth of product, then, you know, you can kind of go with the cheapo inspection. I think, you know, on $1,000, but anything above $1,000, spend the extra 100, especially, you know, when you first start. But, you know, I think you could push that up to 1,500, but I don't want to lose 1,500 no matter what. So for $103, you know, and then what I would do is I'd follow up with both of them. I think that you should do that initial. We need to come up with a good name for that, Paul. You know, that initial inspection that we do where you hop on the phone with them and you make them take, we call it the tour inspection, maybe. You know, take us around your factory, show me what's going on, show me where you store your products, show me people working on the line. They shouldn't have a problem with that. If they do, then, you know, you may want to reconsider doing business with somebody who's not willing to show you what they do. You know, I mean, even if they're like, well, even if they say, well, listen, I really can't show you the floor. Well, you can stand at the back of the room taking a picture and show me online. I mean, I can say this, if someone's not willing to share a live video feed of what their company and their factory looks like, then my point would be there's something shady going on and you just don't need to be a part of that. So, you know, I think if your money that you're spending isn't super high, then you can kind of backwards that into get them on the floor, have them take pictures, you know, have them take some nice video for you, you know, have them film like 1 minute long little video clips of your product. And that would be in that, you know, initial inspection, we'll call it how about the iPhone inspection? You can get an iPhone inspection. So on the iPhone inspection, you know, you're out there on the floor and they can take, I mean, 14 megapixel pictures of your product as it's being produced so that you can, you know, you can get some detail, you know, you can have them take pictures of the product with your labels on it or whatever it might be. Now, I suggest if it's available to you and you can ship that product to your home, you need to ship that product to your home. I mean, that's just, you know, especially your first couple of orders, you know, and then you may be able to go with an inspection company and then ship it straight in. But until you're doing, you know, 1,000 plus, I mean, bottom line is once you get into, you know, more than 500 of something, it becomes a lot more difficult. Even doing the 250 products that we launched last week, it's difficult to go through every one of them. Matter of fact, it's quite difficult because if you just think you spend 5 minutes on each one, you know, you just come up with 1,000 minutes of time. Well, 1,000 minutes of time is a lot of time, you know, when you add it up. So
10 hours,
you know,
is 600.
Yeah.
10 hours is 600 minutes. So
yeah, well, there you go. I knew you'd figure that out quick, but that means, you know, I mean, you know, you can't get your mom to go touch, you know, 500 products. You might be able to get her to touch 25 or 50 of them. But anyway, it's very difficult. So make sure that and that again, may be, you know, where an inspection comes through, you know, that you have somebody who can, you know, who's going to spend the time there. Basically how they kind of do this. And I know with the bigger companies, I know with the company I'm going to show you here right now, that they charge basically $100 a day basically for their guys to go and do this. And you guys your company, Paul, contracts by the day as well, right?
Yeah, we do. But again, it's sort of 279 per day.
Right. Well, I mean, again, something completely different. But you know, if you're doing 5,000 products and you're spending $10,000, $279 isn't a, you know, I mean, if you divide that up times your 1,000 products, you're talking about adding, you know, cents to your order as opposed to
yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. You know, as opposed to trying to save yourself, you know, you think that's like $100, $200. I've only got a few, you know, sort of X amount of products coming over. But the danger is if you don't inspect them and there are problems, once they do get into Amazon, you're gonna lose a lot more than $200.
But anyway, but we also know that the iPhone inspection will work to get you started. You know, you got $500,000 worth of stuff. You know, go in there and just do your best due diligence that you can. So I'm going to share my screen here.
yeah, and I really wasn't suggesting you replace an inspection with the iPhone inspection, but it's certainly, while they're on the line, it would give me a good feeling that they look right. They picked one up, they look the right size. I can read the logo, it's spelled right. All that stuff is, you know, you get a feel for it before everything's in a box ready to go.
Yeah, I
supposedly.
Think super important. But again, I mean, sometimes, you know, I mean, it's a risk reward deal. You know, 100 products, it's going to add $1. You know, 100 products adds $1 per item if it's $103. So that's, you know, that's you're going to have to make a call. And like I said, it's this. Sometimes, you know, it's like you work on your own car at the house, and sometimes it works out, and sometimes it doesn't. You know, you can do your own oil changes, but if it comes down to having to do a brake You know, a set of brakes, well, that may not be something you want to pay someone to do your brakes, and that's what we talk about. So Rich Forth is an inspection company out of China. Super simple, easy site to work with. They've been doing this for a while. And you see here, US per man, all day inclusive, anywhere in China, no any other hidden fees, you know, and continuing service after your inspection. So they'll keep working with you. It's pretty easy to get started with them. They've got a great little blog where you can learn some great information as well. So they do quality control. They do inline inspection and production inspections. You know, depending on what you do, you can have multiple things. So what I would suggest is that you're doing, you can have your, when they've done 20% of your order, which this means is that it's basically in the process. You know, you don't want them to go do 500 units and the first, you know, 100 are wrong. So, you know, what you do is, and this, even if you just took this and kind of walk down it, so you do a quality control and then you do an these are all quality control, I'm sorry. And then you do an in-production inspection, and then you do a shipment or pre-inspection before you ship it. So you want to know what's going on before that. And then if you're going into a container load, you know, that would be the deal. But also, you know, you can probably have them work and have them inspected. And you're probably going to end up in that pre-shipment inspection and then maybe have them overlook your shipping plan and stuff like that. And that may be able to do that, you know, again, with an iPhone inspection at the end there. So they'll do factory audits, you know, and then they'll do a social accountability audit, which basically means they don't have child labor or, you know, they're not enslaving people at their factory. So let me go back here and show you some sample. All right, load up. Where did I lost the, oh, and here's another magic thing right here. Skype. Remember, we always talk about using Skype, you know, get Skype.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you want to be able to chat with people. I lost them. Yeah, I wanted to give you what a sample report from them looks like. So this is kind of, you know, what a sample report looks like from them. So they go in quality. Now, this is where I'm telling you, you need to put your things that you know you're specifically concerned about and make sure that this is part, you know, of your inspection. I want you to check this, this, and this. You need to have your own checklist. I mean, you don't need them to be figuring this out on their own. So make sure you have your own checklist, you know, of what you're expected. So they'll go through, you know, no sample or photo reference. So, you know, this tells you, you know, things that are going wrong with it. This is actually the actual pictures of the unit. I'm sorry, I pressed that one. I was getting in that gray area there. I made this go in further so we could see it. So that's why so then anyway, so it's, you know, this is what inspection report. It shows you if there's any dents, scratches, that kind of stuff. Look, so here's the thing, you know, they look in there and they give you a thing and he puts an arrow on there and he says, look, that's not right. You know, look here, there's a nick here, there's a nick there. And so you're able to get your information prior to your product showing up that, hey man, you know, and sometimes they'll just take them out and scrap them. Sometimes they'll rework them, you know, but you know, they're going to show you what's going on, the kind of quality issues. There's paint peeling. Imagine, you know, you're sending this in and you're, you know, here's what the packaging looks like. You know, they're just going to go through your information. I mean, it's just a great way. I mean, you're spending money with people you've never met, you've never seen before. This is what it looks like, packaging.
And you'll
So-
notice there it's got sort of showing page 9 of 43. So it's 43 pages for an inspection report. That is detailed information.
Right, for $100.
Yeah.
So they're taking pictures, they're doing stuff. It's basically you're trying to find someone that represents you and your money there. So, I mean, there's some more inspection reports. So inspectgoods.com, great little place, great resource, inspectgoods.com. You know, I can say this, that I know people have used them, and they all give great feedback from that. So there's a great source, as well as the whole Alibaba deal, if you'd like to look at some other people. But that's definitely a great source. Now, so then the last thing that we'll touch on here today is, well, what about if you want, I mean, what happens if you want to get your goods inspected when you get them here? Or you don't want to touch them, or you don't want to do these things, and you're out of the country and you like to have them inspected. So that's where we come up with FBA inspection. And so what FBA inspection does is they'll pick, pack, they'll combine stuff together for you. They'll, you know, I mean, here's all the things they do. They'll guide you through getting your stuff here. They'll do inspections. They'll set up inspections. So they have a full service inspection company as well. They'll deal with your incoming customs issues and things like that. Look, they have some insurances that you can do. So, I mean, here's another way when you can take it to an FBA inspection person who then also, I'll show you the pricing. So they'll show you when you take a cart, and they'll take and handle each product. But, you know, so when it comes in, they're going to make sure everything, facilitate the UPS pickup. They're going to facilitate all the things you do. They'll put labels on them for you. You know, that's about 2 cents less than Amazon will charge you. Poly bags shows you the sizes. Now, listen, this can get expensive. You know, but here's a bundling. They'll bundle place for you. They'll sit your inserts inside of it. So, you know, you can do a lot of these things. If you're out of the country, when you're shipping them here, here's a great opportunity for you to be able to have some, you know, some other things that you can use as your tools to have stuff inspected, as well as have them put their hands on your products once it gets in the US and make sure that it's prepared. Now, again, these are for orders that are a little more expensive, or if you're out of the country and you got to come up with a solution. And so these are both solutions that can help you out quite a bit. And I think we're actually going to do a whole webinar with these guys here very soon. So we'll be able to go through exactly what FBA inspection does, how they work, and those kind of things. So I think that'll be a pretty informative deal for everybody. So that goes over basic inspections and why inspections are important. So get out there and, you know, so if you don't have a lot of money, then you're going to start out with the iPhone inspection. I love that I came up with it, the iPhone inspection. The iPhone inspection is basically you're getting, now I'm not saying this, you know, like I said, I'm recommending that after $1,000 to $1,500, you start looking at wanting to have a real inspection and spend the $100, you know. On your first order, maybe it costs you an extra $1. Remember, this first order you're making is usually a initial order anyway. So, you know, it may not be so much that you're trying to make money out of this first order so much, or, you know, trying to have a 30% margin. Maybe on this first order, you know, you got a 20% margin because you spent some extra money making sure that your product was inspected properly, and you've done some things just to make sure that you don't, you know, we're all about at the Gorillas, we're about trying to create the least amount of risk as we can to eliminate, you know, holes that, you know, you can't see. So we're trying to eliminate those so you don't get caught up in a bad place where, you know, you have to start over from scratch, and, you know, you don't have your $1,000 or your $5,000 or your $10,000. So, you know, spending time on inspections is a super important thing. I think it can help make your process more efficient. It can make it safer. And those are super important things, obviously, if you've got your money at risk. So iPhone inspection, if under up to $1,000 to $1,500, if not, get yourself into a regular inspection company. Got anything to add there, Paul or Hale?
I want to go back to the one thing you talked about in terms of putting down your list in detail. It's hard to conceptualize, but we really need to get our head around the people that you're dealing with are in a different culture. They've never walked into a Walgreens. They don't know what it looks like. They don't know. I mean, I dealt with an Indian company. They were writing checking software. None of the programmers or the managers had a checkbook or used. So basic assumptions that you can't write a negative check. They didn't know that. So, I mean, it's just, you've got to get your head around, they won't know some of the things that you believe everybody would know because they've never experienced what you've experienced. So you have to write it down and say, I want this flower vase, the hole to be big enough to put flowers in. I want it to be cleanable. I need to get my hand in it to wash it out. Whatever those things are, you need to write them down and have them in your list, not assuming that, I mean, I've given the example before. A friend of mine did a bag that she put a paddle in. Well, the logo's upside down on the back side. Well, they didn't say the logo should be right side up on both sides of so they just flipped it over and put the logo, stamped the logo on the back side. For us, the handle's here, the logo faces up toward the handle on both sides. Didn't put it in the specs. Didn't happen. So anyway, just that's my take on the get your list and make your list, assuming they don't know all the stuff that you know.
Well, here's a prime example, because obviously I'm in Thailand. Yesterday, I was having a conversation with somebody, and so I said something about, well, Elvis Presley, and they had no idea who Elvis Presley was. Then I said, well, do you know Santa Claus is coming to town? They didn't know Santa Claus was coming to town. And then I thought, well, let's just go to like the next big, most famous person that I could. And I said, well, have you ever heard of Jesus? They hadn't heard of Jesus. Now I'm in a bigger town. These are there's Home Depot looking places and Walmart looking places. This is pretty civilized place, and they just not their culture. They're Buddhists. They didn't go figure out who Jesus was. Christmas is something you celebrate because that's about Jesus. So, they've obviously, Christmas, New Year's Eve. Yeah, they know there's some lights out, but, they've never heard Santa Claus is coming to town. And, I thought that Elvis was universally known, and he's not. So that's an absolutely great point, is that you got to think outside of the box when you're doing this stuff. I had the loop on the I have a carrier bag that I make for my last product, and the guy who's there is 5'2", 5'1". He's got that thing, and he shortened it so it fits him, the strap, but the strap on me or Paul for sure.
Get it over your head.
It'll be up under Paul's underarm. He'll be carrying it like this, and so again, you got to think, and listen, that's why we're here. So you can ask those questions and, hey, what kind of things do you think you should look for? So you can definitely get those and get that information. Paul, what do you got?
No, you're right. Going back onto inspection.org, on there, I'll drop the file, I'll drop the link. And basically that is exactly what you've been talking about, how to actually stipulate exactly what they want. And this is your extra points that you need inspecting. But going back one further, it's the points that you need your manufacturer to actually put into place, i.e. make sure that loop is this long, not any shorter and not any longer. So you've got that tolerance on it. Make it, it's like 97 to 100. That's it. It can't be anything outside of that. So yeah, it is absolutely critical to get that information up front. And document it down. If it's documented, then you can actually go back to your manufacturer and say, look, we've written this down and it was agreed, and you need to actually make it to that. Inspectors go in, they've got something to inspect against, which is nice and clear. So yeah, it's a very good point, gentlemen. Well done.
Well, there you go. That's some information about inspectors. You touched on this. Let me just, the last tidbit of information before we get here is every time you make a purchase with somebody, you need to have something that says the word contract in it. You know, an outline, even if it's simple, basic stuff. Now, is that contract actually enforceable in China? No. I can tell you this, but when you have a contract, they really try to do the thing on there, unless they're a complete scam artist, and hopefully you found that prior to doing that. But yeah, I mean, they don't want bad reviews going up, just like anybody else on Alibaba or whatever. But a contract will help you. And here's what will also help you: if you have a PayPal dispute, you use a PayPal credit card or your credit card, and you have an outline of some contract, then guess what? You can back that up. So, you know, always have some form of a contract. And I don't care if there's the word contract in it, and you just outline as much information as you can know. But, you know, put some down on paper so they know they're supposed to produce this, they're supposed to do this, you know, and that's the bonus tip of the day. All right, guys, thanks for showing up today. Next week we've started a weekly how to find a product an hour before this. So if you're out there and you're interested in that, we'll be sending out links for that as well. You can go to the website where we'll have that link every week, which is the how to find a product weekly meetup. I mean, what that comes down to is we're going to get on the line and we're just going to search for products. So, and I mean, simple. We're going to get on there and we might find some days, some days we won't, but we're just going to literally product search every Sunday and just see what we can do. We'll probably use different kinds of software. We'll probably just do it without it. So we're just going to come up with, we possibly can, how to find a product, and that'll be every week, an hour prior to this. So was that 7 Central Time, Paul?
Yes, right? Yes, it is 7.
All right. So that'll put some of you guys out in California or whatever. But anyway, it'll be a weekly live call where we search for product. So anyway, hey, thanks, guys. I appreciate you coming, and we'll see you next week. Got any questions?
Hey, good night, everybody. Hey, Robert, you staying on?
Yeah, for a minute. Yep.
Okay.